Okay, so I want to go over muscle and nervous tissue with you. And then we're going to do a lab just like we did before on muscle and nervous tissue. All right, so let me get a pen. All right, so muscle tissue, I hope you realize its job is to contract. So it has a special ability. When we talk about contraction, we mean getting shorter. So muscle tissue has the ability to contract. And when it does that, it produces movement of some type. All right, oops, oops, sorry, gonna undo, there we go, to produce movement. All right, so muscle tissue is the only one that's able to do that, okay? All right, so there are three types of muscle tissue that we need to go over, all right? Obviously, muscles that we're talking about here, some of them are attached to bones, some of them are attached to other parts of the body. So we have muscles all over the body that do different things. We're most familiar with the muscular system, which are the ones that are attached to the skeleton, but there are other types of muscle tissue. So let's start with the skeletal one because that's the easiest. Obviously, it's in the bones or attached to bones. Let's put that. All right, so these are biceps, triceps, quadriceps, hamstrings, all of those muscles. These are part of the muscular system, so that is what we're talking about with skeletal muscle. And we're going to use some terms here for control and for anatomy, and we're going to use them for each one. And so I'm going to write the words up here first. So those words are what they look like. Some of them are striated. And what this means is striped. So striations are due to the muscle fibers, the protein fibers that are in the muscle. And it depends on how they're lined up, whether or not you will see them looking striped under the microscope, all right, when we look at them. So we're going to use down here for anatomy, we're going to use, some of them are striated and some of them are not. And we're also going to use the words for control. We're going to use these two terms, voluntary or involuntary. So the difference between these two words is that if it's involuntary, that means that we don't have to think about it to get it to work. So it is basically automatically controlled, no thought process involved, all right, unconsciously controlled if you want to think about that for involuntary. And voluntary would be the opposite. We have to think about it in order to do it, okay? All right, so those are the terms that we're going to use for control. It's voluntary or involuntary. And the anatomy, we're going to say whether they're striped or not. And I'm going to show you those pictures. So let's first start with the function. As I said, skeletal muscle moves bone. All right, so it's attached to bone, and it moves the bone. These are part of your muscular system. So for control, I hope that you realize that the skeletal muscles are voluntarily controlled. We determine whether or not we move those muscles or not, all right? So it's not something that you have to like constantly think about, but you can choose whether or not to move them. They are not an unconscious thing. They don't happen automatically. They do require our thought in order to get them to move. So to move my arm, I have to put some thought into doing that, and I don't have to move it. It's not an automatic thing. It doesn't move without my thinking about it. You have to think about it. So this is a voluntary muscle. And for the anatomy, it is striated. So it is striped. And I'm going to show you, I have a little picture here, but I'm going to go a couple slides here and show you this. So this is skeletal muscle. And I think you can see that there are muscle fibers that run this way. So you'll see that muscle is typically in strips like this. And you see a nucleus every once in a while. That's this. All right. So think of these long strips as like muscle cells. And they've got nuclei. But then inside, I hope that you can see these stripes that run like perpendicular to the muscle fiber, and you can really see it in skeletal muscle. Those are the striations. And again, it's because of the lineup of the protein fibers that make this appear striated under the microscope. When we get to the muscles, you'll learn a little bit more about that. But right now, you just need to know that this type is striated and voluntary. Okay, it's attached to the bone. So that's skeletal muscle, and that's what it'll look like. All right, long strips with striations running this way, perpendicular to the strips. Okay? All right, so next is cardiac muscle, and cardiac muscle is in the heart. So the heart has a lot of muscle in it to pump the blood, right? It is a pump, and it squeezes the blood out of it in order to send it out throughout the body. All right, so we need muscle to do that. So its function is to, so again, all muscle tissue produces movement, so it basically pumps the blood or moves the blood. All right, it's the job of the cardiac muscle. All right, so this muscle is not part of the muscular system. It's actually part of the cardiovascular system in this case, right? It's just part of the heart. Control, I think hopefully you realize that this is involuntarily controlled. We don't have to sit and think about our heart pumping. It does it automatically. It automatically speeds up when we need it. It automatically slows down when we need it. It's not something that we have to consciously think about. Thank goodness, because some of us would forget and then we'd stop our heart pumping, all right? So this is involuntarily controlled. And the cardiac muscle is also striated, but the striations look a lot different than skeletal. So I'm just going to put striated here. And I'm going to go here and show you a bigger picture so that you can see. So here's cardiac muscle. The strips look a little different, all right? They're sort of branched strips. They're not nice and even like this, like skeletal muscle, all right? And I still see a nuclei. I see multiple nuclei in these strips, all right? They look like this. And the striations are not nearly as many as a skeletal muscle. Again, it's because of the arrangements of the fibers. But I see some every once in a while, like here's one right here, and here's one, and here's one, and here's one. So I see them here and there, but they're not constant like the skeletal muscle. So you should be able to tell the difference when you look at them under the microscope. These have striations here and there. These are filled with striations. Okay, so where they're both striated, they look different, all right, because of the number of striations. Skeletal always has way, way more, okay? So that's cardiac muscle, all right? And then the last type of muscle is smooth muscle. And this is found inside our hollow organs. There's some in the stomach. There's some in the bladder. So the stomach has it in order to push food into the small intestine. Small intestine has smooth muscle to push it into the large intestine, and the large intestine has smooth muscle to push it out of the body, right, when we make waste. There's some in the blood vessels that help pump the blood through or push the blood through. The bladder pushes urine out, all right? So this is all smooth muscle. So this, I'm just going to say, this is more of a propulsion type thing. All right, so propels food through the intestine, propels bladder out of the bladder, propels blood in the vessels. All right, so again, it's movement, but it's internal movement that we don't really see. All right, so that's the smooth muscle. This is controlled also involuntarily. Don't have to think about digestion. It happens automatically once we eat. We don't have to think about the bladder, all right, that it fills up, pushes it out, all right, those kinds of things. So you'll see there's some muscle in the bladder that is voluntarily controlled, but there's stuff that's involuntary in there also. Okay, so this is involuntary. Digestion we don't have to think about, all right, that type of thing. And it's called smooth because it's the only one that's not striped. So there are no stripes in this one. All right, that's why it's called smooth, because it doesn't have stripes or striations. All right, and that one looks like this. All right, so I see some strips here, all right, going this way, lots of nuclei, but no striations running this way. Okay, so it's this pink with purple, all right, that's the smooth muscle. Okay, so all three of these are muscle. Skeletal, striations, lots of them. Cardiac striations, but just here and there. And then smooth, no striations. So you are going to have to differentiate between these three types of muscle. Okay? So those are our muscle tissues, all right? Three types. Okay? Cardiac, skeletal, and smooth. Okay? And then the last type of tissue is nervous tissue. And this one's pretty easy because there's only one by itself. And when we looked at them the first day that we did this, it was the one with the big blob. All right, so I'm going to go over what that is here in a second. The function, obviously, is to be able to send messages. So this one has the ability to communicate. When we get to the nervous system, we'll find out how that happens, like what's going on inside the nerves and the nerve cells in order to send a message. Obviously, it's found in nervous tissue, like the brain, in the nerves, in the spinal cord. All right, that's about it. And basically what you're looking at here, this is a neuron, which is a nerve cell. So we have this is called the cell body. This is like the cell part of it, and it's got a nucleus. And then it's got these long extensions, all right? And you can see them sort of branching off here, and you can see some this way. They look like, I don't know, long tentacles or something like that. And so these are extensions that help pick up incoming impulses and then send away other impulses. So like if it's picking up a message, it'll receive that, it'll come in through the cell body and then maybe send a message out the other way. So this ability to send a message, it's because of these extensions off of the cell that allow it to do that. The extensions are called axons and dendrites. We don't have to worry about that right now. You can just call them extensions, and that's fine. And some of the extensions in the body, we have like a nerve cell here, and the extensions go the whole way down the arm to help, send messages quickly. Obviously, if there are more cells, there's more to go through, but if there's one big long extension, you just have to send it along that one. All right, so basically that's it. So there's only one type of nervous tissue, and it looks like this big blob. All right, so that's the only one you have to identify. There's not multiple types like the other ones that we've done. All right, so you are going to look at this under the microscope. All right, so I'm going to have cardiac, skeletal, and smooth muscle up front, and I have nervous tissue up front, so you're drawing 4. All right, when you're all to finish this up. So these last 4, all right, to identify. So for cardiac, skeletal, and smooth, I want you to do the fibers, like the strips are like the cells. I have them outlined in green. You should be able to do the nucleus, all right? So you can see nuclei here, the little dots. If there's striations, point those out, all right? Label striations. Obviously, this one there won't be. And then in nervous tissue, you could just do the cell and the extensions. All right, that's what you have to label there. All right, so we'll go do the lab. When you're done the lab, I have a tissues worksheet in the folder that I would like you to start working on. If you don't finish it, that's okay. We can finish it tomorrow, but just start working on that to review types of tissue, okay? All right, that's all I have, so you can go do the lab.